Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to smother steak, okay? Steak for two. I'm using New York strip, but you can use any type of cut you would like. And I'm gonna season each side with salt, pepper, some garlic powder, some red pepper, and some onion powder, okay? And I would start out with just a little bit until you get used to seasoning your food, and you wanna make sure you evenly coat each side. Once we season our steaks, we're going to add flour on top of that. I would start out with 1/4 teaspoon, maybe 1/2 teaspoon of each seasoning, but watch your salt. You don't want to add too much of that, so I would stay low on that because you can always add your salt later, okay? But those guys that are really used to cooking, just add the seasonings that you would like, okay? So we're going to start out. You want to make sure that your steaks are washed with some water, and I like to pat them down dry with some clean paper towels. Whenever you take meat out of the packaging, please wash your meat because they don't wash it there. So you want to wash your meat, okay? Especially your steaks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to season both sides of my steaks, and then we're going to add our flour. But meanwhile, you want to make sure about that much oil, some vegetable oil. We want to start getting that hot. So we're going to have that on medium-high heat, okay? Because we're going to fry our steaks. Okay, so I have both sides seasoned. And I forgot to tell you, I like to add paprika too. So don't forget your paprika. It really makes a big difference. So now when we get both sides evenly coated with our seasoning, we want to add some flour. So we want to coat both sides of our steaks. And then we're going to shake off the extra flour onto the plate. Okay, so we have flour on both sides of our steaks, and we're going to carefully add them to our preheated oil that we have, our vegetable oil in our skillet. Okay, and this is what I mean by shaking off the extra. Okay, we're going to come over here. Nice little sizzle going. Be careful because you don't want it to splash on you. Okay, so we're going to let both sides cook until the flour is a pretty brown, like a golden brown. I'm going to cut this down to medium now so it doesn't cook too fast. Now, if you have thicker steaks and it's not quite cooked enough like you like it, don't worry about it, because when we do the smothering part and we let it cook down, it's going to cook more and be well done, okay? And you want to cook it until it's nice and tender. Okay, so this has been cooking about 4 minutes, and one way that you can do, you kind of cheat a little bit, just kind of look under it and see if it's the color that you want. A nice pretty golden brown is exactly what you need. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip this one too. Beautiful. So we're going to let this cook for another 3-4 minutes, and then I'm going to take it out. I'm going to set it on a plate, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we're just going to remove our steaks, and we're going to set it on a plate on the side. And then you're going to let this cool a little bit, take it off the heat, and you're going to drain your oil, but you want to leave about 2 tablespoons of oil in here, okay? You want all your little bits to stay in there too, because that's flavor. And then we're going to add about a tablespoon of flour, and then we're going to mix it until the flour is turning a brown color. Okay, so don't forget, it's important. Let this cool, and then we'll put it back on the heat when we add our flour. But you want to leave about, I would say, 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of the oil in there. But don't worry about all the seasonings and drippings from the meat, because that's going to add flavor. Okay, so we still have some of the oil. We added it back, the skillet back onto the heat. I added about 2 teaspoons of the flour mixture. And I'm just going to mix this around. Don't let it set too much because it's going to burn. You don't want it to burn. And what we're doing now is we're prepping for our gravy. You want to leave those bits and everything in here that fried with the steak, because that's flavor. Okay, See, this is a nice pretty brown. And this is the color your gravy will be. If you want it a little darker, you can just mix it a little more. But it's hot, so don't let it sit. You got to kind of keep it moving around. And then what I'm going to add, you can add beef broth at this point. You can add just water at this point if you want. But I'm actually going to add some chicken broth. I guess you're saying, chicken broth, we're doing steak. Yes, I'm going to add chicken broth. It's not going to make it taste like chicken. Trust me, it won't. But it's going to add a lot of flavor here. And I guess that's about 1/4 of a cup. And then any more liquid that you want to add, depending on how much gravy you want, you can just add water at this point. But I'm going to let this cook a little bit. You can actually use kind of your whisk here. Kind of whisk everything. Now I do have some onions and some bell pepper and cut up, also fresh garlic clove cut up. You can also add real bell pepper in there. You can pretty much add other vegetables, but this is pretty much all I add is the onion and the green bell pepper. Okay, see this? The more it cooks, the thicker it's gonna get. So let me add just a little bit more here, and I promise it's not going to taste like chicken, but it's going to give it this rich flavor and it's going to be really good. I'm going to add a little bit more of my salt, a little bit more of my pepper, and a little bit more of the seasonings. And when I say a little bit more, like a pinch that we used on our steaks. Okay, see how it's cooking? Okay, so we want to turn down our heat to about medium. I'm going to whisk this together. This is pretty. Look at that color. We're going to add our steaks back, but I want to add a little bit of water because you want your steaks to smother in this and get nice and married together with the seasonings. Your gravy is also going to get seasoning from your meat when you add it back. Okay, so let me add just a little bit of water in this because you want to cook it down to where the meat is nice and it gets soft and it's juicy and it's just so delicious. Okay, so let's add maybe just about 1/4 a cup, not even that much of water here. Okay, I added a little bit. We're going to add our steaks back here into our gravy. It's going to be so good. Okay. And now we're going to add our onions, our bell pepper, all on here. In the gravy too. And you know what? The onion, bell pepper, that's to taste. You can add as much. This is going to cook down and be nice and soft and delicious too. Going to also add our garlic in here. I like onion a lot, so add kind of a lot of onion. But like I said, everything is going to cook down a lot. Don't forget your garlic. Now this is fresh garlic, so you don't need much of that. Okay, so now what we're going to add, if you have stewed tomatoes, that's usually what I like to add. I'm going to do a little bit differently this time. I'm going to add some Mexican style tomatoes, and this is really good. I've used it before. It's a little spicy because that's how I want it today. But you can just use plain stewed tomatoes. They have Italian seasoning ones. You know, you could use whatever, but it's going to give your gravy oomph. It's going to give it something extra. So we're going to add, I don't have like a lot of steak in here, so I'm thinking about half of the can. Okay, so I added some of the tomatoes in there. We're going to give this a little stir. Make sure you get some of that juice from the can. And what I do, if I have extra ingredients, like maybe extra vegetables in a can, or in this case, the tomatoes, I empty it into a freezer bag and I put it in the freezer. I label it, put it in the freezer. When you get ready to use it, just defrost it, and it's ready to go. It's nice and fresh and everything. Put this on the side. Okay, kind of just stir this around. When it cooks down a little bit more, we're gonna let this cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. You wanna watch it. If you find that your gravy is getting thick too quickly, just add a little bit of water to it. Let it cook down. And as it cooks down, the flavor is going to get even better. Like, seriously, it's going to even taste so much more yummier. At that point, cool it. Make sure you cool it. You can taste it to make sure it's what you want. You may have to add a little bit more seasoning if you want, or you can always add it after the fact, like your salt and pepper. Because I know sometimes everybody has different tastes and what's salty enough for them. So, and it already looks beautiful. It's a little thin right now, but as this cooks down, this is what we want. So that way the meat can be, doesn't have to be covered completely, because when we put our top on this, it's going to steam up. Okay, you want to cook this about medium heat, but if you need to cut it down a little bit more, depending on your stove, cut it down a little bit more. You want it to cook, but you don't want it to cook down to where it's not, the meat wasn't able to at least be in here a good 20 minutes or so. Sometimes it takes a little longer depending on the cut of meat. It may be a little bit more tough. So you should cook it a little slower and for a longer period of time. The crock pot is great for stuff like this, and even your oven. You just want to make sure that your pots are able to go in the oven. Sometimes it can take 45 minutes to an hour. That is totally fine, because it's worth it, because it'll be so tender. And the way you check your meat to see if it's tender, you just kind of stick it with a fork. It'll start falling apart. But we want our gravy. We don't want to cook our gravy out, so you just have to watch it, okay? Now, I got some rice over here cooking. Okay, these are so great. This is a little hot. It was cooking. Sometimes the water comes out. But these are great if you just want a couple of servings. You know, this is steak for two, so smothered steak for two. So I do want to put it over rice, but you can do mashed potatoes if you want. I have some cream corn here. I know it looks a hot mess right now, but I'm getting ready to turn this on. And what I added was about a tablespoon of butter in here, some paprika, maybe about a teaspoon of paprika, and then I added salt, pepper to taste. That's all you need in the cream corn. And even my other corn, just the kernels, delicious. Try the paprika in your corn. I'm telling you, it's delicious. So we want to cook this on low, because we have some time before our meat is done. And I'm going to stir this as this starts to cook. I'm going to stir it now, actually. And because you don't want it to stick, okay? When it starts to cook, you can take it off the heat and then place it back on when your food is almost done too, okay? So this was out of the can, very easy, but the seasonings is what makes the difference. Okay, you guys, so we're gonna let this cook down, give it about 20 minutes, and then we're gonna check it. Looking good, looking good. Not done yet, but looking good. Not quite 20 minutes, but close. And you see how your gravy is cooking down. It's getting thicker. I'm going to cook it down some more. Good stuff at this point. And this, you know, New York strips, they kind of get like tender really quick. But some other steaks that are a little cheaper, which are still delicious, it takes a little longer, and that's fine. Alexa, stop alarm. Okay, so this has been 20 minutes. This is good at this point. I'm just going to cook it down a little bit more and let my gravy get a little bit thicker. But you want to watch your meat because you don't want it to overcook at the bottom. But it's not cooked out, but you'll be surprised how you go and start doing something else and then your gravy cooks out. But I'm doing a quick macaroni and cheese, y'all. I'm hungry. I just came from the gym. I have this stuff. Let's make a small one. Okay, you guys, so we have our smothered steak, our rice with the gravy, our cream corn. I added some cornbread. I made that last minute. and our last minute macaroni and cheese, which is going to be so good. Okay, you guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Love y'all. Have a great day. Bye and happy eating.